What is up with it, everybody? Live from the studios of WIUR here from the Murphy Center at Iona University. Welcome back to Woolley Mammoth Tuesdays. I'm your host, Cam Woolley, keeping you company throughout the 2 o'clock hour, 2:04 p.m. on Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. Still waiting for the good weather to come in. We've gotten pump faked with a couple of nice days here and there, but it's nature of the beast here in the Northeast metropolitan United States. But we're going to be talking some sports for a little bit. Obviously, March Madness going on. And to be honest, there aren't really a lot of fun stories here. March Madness, it's always like a really fun time of year. You see the wacky stories of random schools you never heard of knocking teams off. And to be honest, that's really not there anymore. Honestly, the big story is like St. John's making it to the Sweet 16 for the first time in 20-something years. And that's only because they're St. John's and they're like the New York City school that they're kind of part of the environment, but are they really? Also, I just hate St. John's because of Rick Pitino, because him leaving just really screwed this program. But to be honest, that we may have already been dead to rights to begin with. So, to be honest, we got to establish something here, dude. There is a very clear food chain in college basketball. And it already existed because you had certain schools who had more pull, who had more to offer, just on a structural level in terms of the prestige and the respect that they had. Take a look at like Duke would have a better shot at landing a recruit than us, just for example. But NIL and the transfer portal just really locked it into place. And it has really solidified as we're getting through the first true generation of college athletes who are they're basically professionals. And I'm not going to sit here and complain about the players, because I'm all the power to them. They're making all the money they can. Who knows if they're even going to make it pro? And I know that was a big point of contention for college athletes being paid, because they're pretty much the most famous people from that school. And they get the ratings of pro sports. I get it. I get why they wanted to get paid. I am not throwing any shade at the players, but it created such a divide, and it essentially just made every single Cinderella story get gutted by the very teams that they beat, who they proved they were better than in the tournament, the second their season ends, like that. So tell me how these smaller schools are supposed to build, because to me, it looks like they get punished for succeeding. Plain and simple. I call it like it is. They get punished for succeeding. When they win, everyone leaves. The coach, the best player, every single starter, and half the bench at bare minimum leaves for a greater opportunity. And the entire school, it's just all that's left is the bones. Maybe little bits of meat there in the form of those end of the bench guys. And they're being shoved right back down into the basement, where they got to restart the cycle again, where they might not even get back to anywhere close to that level for maybe a decade or two. So take Siena, for example. They're in our conference. They're in the MAC. It's a one-bid conference. They made the tournament. And I know that they've had a strong team, and they've been respectable. The entire time I've been here, Siena has been a respectable program by MAC standards, and I recognize that. And that's kind of my point here. They had something great. Or not great. They had something pretty good. And they finally get a shot to sort of bear the fruits of that work and that process and that labor They win the MAC. They're a 16 seed and they get matched up against Duke, the number one seed overall in the entire tournament. Cam Boozer, probably going to be the number one overall pick. And they have a pretty good showing against them. They had Duke on the ropes. They were leading by as many as, I think, 15 at the beginning of the second half. They were thoroughly the better team through a half and change of basketball before Duke kind of just came away with everything. They had a fantastic showing against Duke. Their reward for this? Jerry McNamara going to Syracuse, Gavin Doty probably following him there, and a lot of their other starters who played the entire game, by the way, good as gone as well. And they are left right back at square one, as I mentioned before. So if you look at these schools here, the Cinderella stories, the mid-majors, you think High Point is staying together? No. You're not going to hear about them ever again. Sure, I mean, a beautiful campus. Oh, my God. I think once people start doing it, like I knew that High Point had a pretty nice campus. Like with the swimming pool, and they have all sorts of bells and whistles. Their tuition's $80,000 a year, but it's a pretty nice campus. But other than that, they're not going to be in the national spotlight for a very long time. Look at any other school like UVC. They're not, like, they're going to get picked apart. So any momentum that these schools gain gets brought to a screeching halt because the teams they were on a level playing field with gut their whole programs alive, and sort of just, you have Duke taking someone here, Syracuse taking someone there. Say like St. John's, and in our example, St. John's grabbing our head coach and our point guard. Florida, Missouri, I mean, Texas, take any team on earth, like Michigan. Everybody is there. It's like a buffet. We've become feeder schools for these people. And these smaller schools, we can't maintain any sort of success because we don't have the money or facilities, neither the financial nor structural capital in place, built over decades to compete with these Power 5 programs. You know, back then, you could build a program and build a team that stuck together and gelled, and you could add to it for a few years and maybe make a few runs. Because, like, if you could recruit some good players, you had them for 4 years or however long they were eligible. Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. Because if you recruit a freshman who say you get like a 3-star recruit, you bring him in, say by the end of his sophomore year, he's a really good player. He's gained a lot of recognition. He's one of the best players in your conference. And say you make it to the tournament. Say he's the prototypical lanky guard that drops 28 points on the 2 seed, on like Kentucky or something. That very player who you recruited and you brought in using your own skill is going to leave for a team of a greater caliber because they can literally offer them more. Financially, structurally, they roll out the red carpet for these people. And, like, to be honest, dude, I'm going to go full hammer and sickle here. It's a class issue. There is a clear divide, clearer than ever, and it's going to get deeper between the haves and have-nots of not just college basketball, but college sports. For the average mid to low major, there is very little, if any, upside to going on a run in this thing. Sure, you get the recognition and you sort of jester max in front of national television and you become a neat story for a couple weeks. But in this modern news cycle, all you're going to be is just like, oh yeah, a pretty neat memory. Just curious, when was the last time you saw Oakland anywhere? Sure, St. Peter's made it to the tournament a couple years ago, but that's it. Nobody's when was the last time anybody's heard of St. Peter's other than their big run? They're an exception to this. I'm gonna be very honest, they're an exception. Because St. Peter's, that whole program, they got picked alive. They made it to the Elite Eight. Yeah, nobody was left after that. And they made it back. That's an anomaly. That doesn't happen anymore. You get this cycle of schools. You have one school pop up, and then they maybe win a game. So much as one good half, in Sienna's case, is enough to gain national recognition and have just these sharks like Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, just go in and eat through your entire program like termites. Again, I'm thinking about so many metaphors for this that involve just eating a program from the inside out. Like that is because it's exactly what's happening. And look around. There's no real Cinderella this year. As a product of this, the lowest seed remaining is Texas. Not Texas A&M, not TCU, no, like random school in Texas, some random Catholic school, or not Catholic, I don't know. They don't really have a lot of Catholics out there. We got the Catholics up here. We're a Catholic school. But so like some like Texas Baptist State College or something. I know that doesn't make any sense. The religious and state institution, whatever. But Texas, Longhorns, hook 'em, Texas is the lowest remaining seed in this tournament. They are the closest thing we have to a Cinderella story in the Sweet 16. And they have maybe a larger NIL war chest than any other college in the nation. How is that supposed to be endearing? How? All of the quote unquote Cinderella teams are teams that have the money, that have the legacy, that have the structure in place. Again, it's the wealth gap between these schools. If you think baseball is bad, oh my God, it's pretty much the Dodgers on steroids, except everybody in the Power Five is the Dodgers. And every team that is below that cutoff line is like the A's or something. There's some team that's, although no organization in Major League Baseball is too broke to pay their players, but in this case, they literally are. Like whatever you think the wealth disparity in baseball is, it's actually happening in college basketball. Because take a look at what happened if we went on a run. And I know I'm saying this, I'm coming at this from a very biased, passionate perspective because I go to the school, look at all of the emblems around here. We go to a mid-major school that used to be very successful, who used to make it to the tournament all the time. We used to be a household name in the mid-major scene. And now, because of this, any good player we have gets swept up. Every coach we have, even in like the Tobin Anderson days, where he was only here for a couple years. Again, you know my opinions on him for those who listened last week, or not last week, but the last show I did, you know my opinions on how that whole situation went down. But even like with Tobin Anderson, he came in after Pitino left, nothing was there. He had to build the roster from the ground up. Year after everyone left, nothing was there. Then he comes in and he has a pretty good team and then he gets fired. And now we're going through all this. Now, Dan Giroux gets hired. All of the players we have, they're probably either transferring or graduating. And so every mid-major coach, even while they're still there, they have to go and basically start the roster over from scratch every year. implement tweaks to the system that fit the players that they could grab out of the bargain bin. It's so frustrating because all I want to see is just see my team be consistently good. And I'm not saying, the thing is, like, whenever I complain about one of my teams not doing well, it's usually their fault. In this situation, it's not. It's the sport that they're in. And it's going to keep getting worse unless they come up with a solution. And if you ask me, they got to put in some kind of spending cap. There has to be a salary cap for this thing, and it needs to be a hard one. Because the parity that once made March Madness one of the arguably the best sporting event of the year, with the brackets, like, it used to be a whole thing where you would have a couple schools where you would dive into their history and you would learn about them and they would see legit boosts from it. Now those same schools just have flash in the pan success before the big boys pick them dry. Congratulations, college basketball. You have just killed the greatest thing about you. Back after this.
This is WIUR Radio. This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Beastie from the Ionian, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Are you looking for the latest scoop on campus news, sports, and more? Check out the Ionian University's very own award-winning student newspaper. We keep you up to date with everything happening on and off campus. Want to know about the big game, the latest campus event? It's all in the Ionian. Join the conversation. Read, write, and get involved. Visit www.theionian.org or pick up a copy around campus. Stay informed, stay connected. Now, back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
All right, we're back. I'm gonna need to make our that break wasn't long enough. I thought about putting another ad in there, but whatever. Okay. Anyways, I need to kind of stay hot here because baseball season's coming up, and the New York Yankees, as anybody who knows me knows, they are not good for me. None of my teams are good for me, but the New York Yankees especially I have built a unique, frustrating relationship with them over the Judge era, over this, God, close to a decade now. We are entering the 10th year of the Judge era with no winning, and things only appear to be getting worse. And, in the latest in a line of, to say the least, perplexing decisions and horrible to say the most, Jason Dominguez is starting the season in Triple A. Now, oh my God. Now, Jason Dominguez, I've been a loose follower of his career ever since he signed, because in 2019, he was this 15-year-old kid. He signed, and he was the Martian, El Marciano. He was compared to Mickey Mantle. So obviously there were sky-high expectations for him. And then in the minor leagues, I look at his stats, and I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't appear to be that strong or that generational, or he seems perfectly human. Nothing really alien to speak of. And then fast forward, like, say, the 2022 season. This is where the real puzzling part of the Jason Dominguez saga begins, because in 2022, the Yankees had a pretty strong team. Like, that was, at least on the field, they were winning games. They won their division. They won 99 games. Granted, it was on the heels of a stupid first half, but they were in the middle of their second half collapse. And I'll give them credit for that year. The deadline, they were aggressive, but they ended up trading for Frankie Montas, who sucked with us. Didn't even start a single playoff game. That's how bad he was. And then, but there was there was a trade rumor involving Luis Castillo of the Cincinnati Reds, where the Yankees were deep in talks to get him, but they were demanding big prospects, namely Jason Dominguez. That was the line that Brian Cashman drew in the sand to say, no, we don't care how good this pitcher is. We want to keep Dominguez because we think he's more valuable to this team. In a year where you are trying to win the World Series, where you have older players, a core that is aging by the day, in the middle of Aaron Judge's 62 home run campaign, and I know he stunk it up in the playoffs that year. I know. I'm well aware. He sucks in the big moments. I don't know what you want me to say. But Luis Castillo, he could have helped that team win a championship. He could have been a major piece, not just in the present, but in the future. Say like 2024, we had Luis Castillo. That's a way better team. That's a way better rotation. Say this year we had Luis Castillo, or this past year. That's a way better rotation. You probably don't have to go out and sign Max Fried. You can spend that money on our people. Or even if you do sign Max Fried, you have Cole, or not Cole because he was hurt, but say you have Castillo and Fried as the 1-2 in that rotation. Put them in any order. That's killer. Jason Dominguez was the thing stopping Luis Castillo from being in pinstripes. That was the line that Brian Cashman drew. And then he makes his debut in 2023. He looks really good. Then he gets Tommy John. Comes up and barely even plays in 2024. So that's another great look. Because we just needed to have Alex Verdugo take 700 at-bats that year. God. And then last year, he gets inconsistent playing time. He gets benched when he's hot. He gets nonstop reps when he's cold before getting benched when he even finds any sort of momentum. They use him in all the wrong places. They bench him against righties for Cody Bellinger, who empirically bats better against lefties. And now I just want to say something out there for all the people who think that the Yankees are too analytical. Look at any basic Fangraph split. They'll tell you that Cody Bellinger is the right guy to play against lefties, yet he's benched for a ton of their games against left-handed pitching. He had a 180 WRC plus this past year against left-handed pitching, and they felt more inclined to bench him against lefties because they still have this archaic mindset that, oh, opposite-handedness, that's what works well. Even though the statistics say that that is empirically wrong. But again, the Yankees, who are apparently way too analytical, they don't listen to the most basic stats that are available to the public. And that has me very concerned about what their internal metrics are telling them that are pretty wrong. Because this team hasn't won a championship in a while, and I don't think they are for a very long time. And so Jason Dominguez, he's starting the year in AAA, and you see this happen so many times with Yankee prospects where they will hold on to them, they'll overvalue them, and pass on players who probably would have helped them win at least one World Series by now. Because they think they're so arrogant. They're so full of themselves that they think that their homegrown guys are going to be more valuable than an established Cy Young or MVP candidate, or an All-Star, or a Silver Slugger, or Gold Glove. Anybody who actually has accolades and a proven track record of success at the major league level that appears to be sustainable. You see this going back to a lot of prospects. Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier. They were the holdup for so many players who could have helped this team win, say, in 2019. We could have traded for Garrett Cole a year earlier, but no, we had to hang on to those. Oh, God. Although, if Garrett Cole got traded here in the Rothschild days, I think he would have just been murdered. I don't know, but that's just my opinion. It's just sad. I'm just sad about it. 'Cause I don't know how much energy I can put into this team. I don't know. Honest to God, I do not know what I can say about them that I have not already said 500 quintillion times. I mean, this is all just textbook Brian Cashman arrogance and another case of a failed prospect. And like it's all this whole situation with the outfield was all his hubris because like, oh, I'll extend the qualifying offer to Trent Grisham. There's no way he takes it. He ended up taking it. You're paying him $22.5 million. That leaves Jason Dominguez in AAA. The guy who you insisted to us was the future franchise cornerstone of this team. And I guarantee they're going to do the same thing with Spencer Jones. Honestly, there's only one prospect on this team there's like two prospects on this team who I would consider to be like, yeah, those guys can be pretty good. I'm going to get to the other one later, but I mean, George Lombard, that's the only guy who I think can play well. And he's going to be replacing the last shortstop who was the snag in so many potential trades. Yeah, Anthony Volpe is one of the worst shortstops in baseball, and he was valued as this godlike figure. Oh, he's the next Derek Jeter. That's literally how they marketed him to us, as the next Derek Jeter. And now you look at him, he can't even make a throw to second or third. And he can't even field anything cleanly. Like, I cannot remember the last time. 2024. That was the last time Anthony Volpe was a good defender at shortstop. And he can't hit either. He's going to have a WRC plus of below 80 this year. He sucks. He sucks. And I'm not going to be fooled by whatever good start he has because he always does it. He spends like April and May having a good start where you think, hey, maybe this is it for the kid. It never is. It never is, dude. Let's just stop it. Just stop it with Anthony Volpe already. I'm done. And George Lombard is the guy who is being brought in to replace. And you know that's their plan. They're not going to say it outwardly because they'll never admit when they're wrong on a kid. But George Lombard is the guy who is going to be brought in probably in like 2028 or 2029, knowing how slowly they progress their prospects, to be the guy who's going to replace Anthony Volpe, and they're going to slowly just push him out the back door because they're embarrassed about it and they know it, and they don't want other people to know how wrong they knew they were on him. The other prospect I like on this team, Carlos Agrane. I mean, that's a pretty good prospect. I mean, he's a solid arm. I mean, he throws the gas, straight diesel. This guy throws. I mean, watching all of his spring training appearances, I mean, he has been just fantastic. And if he has command of his stuff, I mean, he throws a 94-mile-an-hour slider. This kid's just a flamethrower through and through. And if honestly, all he needs to do is just throw it in the strike zone and nobody can catch up to it. If he can locate his fastball well enough, and I know walks are his main problem. I understand that. I hate walks more than most people on this planet, more than most baseball fans. I hate walks. Can't stand them. Will never be able to stand them. The Yankees would have won the division last year if it weren't for relievers walking hitters. But Lagrange, I mean, geez, this is a guy who averages like 101 on his fastball. His fastball never dropped below 100 miles an hour in spring training. He threw quite a few innings for a pitching prospect. He can give length. He can probably come out of the bullpen. And all in all, dude, I love what he looks like he's able to provide. And, dude, if he becomes a starter in this rotation, you got him and Schlittler throwing 100 at with a starter's stamina. And Cam Schlittler already might be like a top 30 starter in baseball. If Carlos Lagrange can follow a similar development path, all of a sudden you have a rotation that has Cole, Fried, Schlittler, and Lagrange. I like that in a playoff series. I very much like that. And speaking of Garrett Cole, I was going to talk about this earlier, but the prospect talk sort of made me go to Lagrange. But Garrett Cole in his one spring training start, I didn't look for anything, but he's throwing 98 miles an hour. His fastball is a tick up from 2024, which encourages me so much. Because I was afraid that when Cole came back, he was going to be averaging 94, maybe even like 93 on his four-seamer, and he wasn't going to be the same because he's old. He's coming off Tommy John. But maybe the drop in velo in 2024 was a result of a nagging injury that ended up meeting Tommy John that he just sort of pushed off for a year. But, I mean, if Garrett Cole can go back to throwing 98 consistently with command, with the knuckle curve, with the slider and the change, that's a really good recipe for an ace level starter that we can get back in this rotation, and it would raise the floor of this team so much. But at the end of the day, dude, I do not see, this is the first year where I am going in and I feel like the Yankees, as constructed, do not have a chance to win the World Series. Look in the AL East. Toronto's better, and they added. Baltimore added Pete Alonso. Boston, they took us to the brink without Roman Anthony. I think they're a better team with Roman Anthony easily. I mean, we saw how great Roman Anthony was in the WBC. The Rays, I don't know, but the Rays, you never know. The Rays are a superior organization to us in pretty much every single way. They run that operation so much better than we do. So if you look at it, the AL East, I mean, there's a world in which I see the Yankees finishing in fourth in this division. I'm going to go out and say it. I think it is more likely that the Yankees miss the playoffs than it is that they make it. Because you're relying on Aaron Judge to replicate a historic season. Like on a year-to-year basis, every year needs to be historic for him in order for this team to even make it to the playoffs. That's insane to me. Not to mention, you got to rely on Cody Bellinger to stay consistent, who has not been consistent in half a decade. Over half a decade, he has not been consistent. You're relying on a shoddy infield. I mean, although Ben Rice at first, I mean, Paul Goldschmidt, why is Paul Goldschmidt back here? Why? What the hell are we doing playing Paul Goldschmidt regularly? Like, I guess you start him against the lefties, which, I mean, cool, I guess. But, I mean, Ben Rice is good. Like, the first base situation, I'm not sweating it. Second base, Jazz Chisholm, yeah, like on paper, he's really good, but he spends half the year being like the worst hitter in this lineup. He has as many stretches where he will hit a homer a game for a week and then go 0 for 22 over a stretch. That is the kind of player you're getting in Jazz Chisholm on top of the insufferable quotes to the media when the team's terrible. Like, yeah. Then you got the shortstop situation. I just talked about Anthony Volpe. And then third base, you have Ryan McMahon, who, I mean, yeah, sure, fine. Ryan McMahon. Cool. But nothing about this team excites me. I mean, look at the bullpen. That's a thin group. Look at the starting rotation right now. I mean, you have Fried, Schlittler, and then a bunch of like Ryan Weathers, who got his bell rung in spring training. And then you have like Luis Heel. And then who knows? You're running in with a 4-man rotation. That is a report that actually came out. The Yankees are running in with a 4-man rotation to open the year. I'm sorry, dude. I've been burnt by this team enough times to where I can confidently tell you I could put my life savings on them not winning the World Series. I can tell you that right now. I will give, if the Yankees win the World Series, I will give $1,000 to the charity of my choice, or the charity of whoever's choice. I will give away $1,000 of my own money to whatever cause that the people see fit. If the Yankees win the World Series, I will do that. So, yeah, that's how much of a lack of faith I have in this team. You have the same manager, the same GM, the same organizational structure that has failed us over the years, the same philosophy that doesn't work, the same everything. I mean, how am I supposed to expect any different when the team itself isn't doing any different? It's the bottom line, folks. And also another thing, this is just some sort of old man rant that I got to go on here. Dude, I don't like opening day being on Netflix at night. Opening day for the Yankees should be in the early afternoon. It should be at 1 p.m. on Yes with Michael K. That's the only way I'm going to feel that, yeah, it's opening day. Let's go. Yeah. But no, we got to do the entire opening series on national networks just because I have to listen to whatever gimmicks Netflix has. So also Netflix, oh yeah, real great job at live sports. Netflix, fantastic. Then I have to listen to like John Smoltz on Fox, listen to him hear about how much he hates baseball these days. How back in our day, it really worked this way. Yeah, no, I don't want to listen to John Smoltz and Ken Rosenthal. That's just going to be terrible. And then, yeah, dude, I just, like, it takes kind of the festivity out of it. But then you have the weekend series in Seattle where then the Yes people will be there. Also, Seattle, a team that made it further than us last year. That's another organization that's superior to us, the Mariners. They run themselves better than we do. They have the better pitching. They are more timely in the playoffs. No, that's a more clutch team. They got more winners on that team than we do. Anyways, that'll be all for my Yankee spiel. When I get back, I'm going to talk briefly about the Giants, just see where the outlook is here going into the draft. And then we're going to wrap this whole thing up. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back after a minute or so.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack.
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi.
To seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
The line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR Sports Radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR Iona University Radio.
All right, I'm back. Just going to talk a little bit about the New York Football Giants, looking at sort of the outlook that they've got for the NFL draft, talking about some of the moves that they made in free agency, and I like a lot of them, to be honest, straight up. I mean, over break they signed Darnell Mooney, who I think could be a pretty solid. I think he's got wide receiver 2 upside, and I think a lot of these moves, what they're kind of showcasing is that the Giants are kind of hanging on to these low risk, high reward 1-year signings to where they don't have to make deep financial commitments and they can pivot in other directions if need be, which is smart when you have a lot of your core guys on rookie contracts. And you got Dexter Lawrence, who's due for a raise soon. You got Andrew Thomas, who's due for a raise soon. And so overall, just smart stuff, and I want to give my props to Donna Ponte for basically taking Joe Shane's job and doing so much better in his position, because Joe Shane put us in a pretty sticky cap situation. It was less sticky than Dave Gettleman, but still really, really sticky. But no, I like what they've done, and there are a few ways that I want to see them go at 5. And there's not really a lot that they could do that would make me genuinely mad. The closest thing that there would be to like a really, really bad pick at 5 that we've heard about is Jeremiah Love. If that were to happen, and it wouldn't even be because he's a bad player. He would make this team better, but it just wouldn't make sense. There would just be so many better places that you could address with that asset instead of just drafting another running back. So at 5, I guess some of my players that I would really want there. I mean, obviously, Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. That's pretty straightforward and really non-explanatory for why I would want them on this team. We don't really have linebackers, and we haven't had a good safety in a minute, but there are some other places that we could go. If it's not one of those 2, I want to trade back. And there are a lot of players who I'm honestly more excited about, who would be more acceptable to draft at, like, say, pick like 11. Say we trade back from 5 to like 11. Then that opens up the possibility for Mansour Delane. I think he's got CB1 potential. And to be honest, if we picked him at 5, I wouldn't hate that, because this team needs a CB1. That is one of the prerequisites for being a legit contender in the NFL, is having a shutdown CB1 to counter the other team's alpha dog wide receiver. It sort of cancels it out. And then another guy who I would definitely trade back for. I'm not taking him at 5. Vega Ioane. I don't know if I pronounced his name right. The guard from Penn State. And this sort of lines up perfectly with everything, because the Giants, they have an issue at guard. And I highly doubt they're going to go into the year with Evan Neal as their starting right guard. And who knows what happens with Greg Van Roten. They're probably just waiting things out to see what happens there. On top of that, if you trade back and you take the guard who projects to be a Pro Bowl, all-pro level guard at this level. If there's a guard being thrown in the top 15 talks, that's pretty much what he's going to be. And then on top of that, you get some more draft capital. Say you get an extra first. Say you get a second round pick in that draft, or like you can choose to double dip in that round. Say you end up drafting Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech. That'd be a really good ad for this team. In the second round, maybe Chris Johnson from San Diego State. I've done a lot of PFF mock drafts with this team. I was over spring break. I was sitting in front of my PC most of the time. Of course, I did a bunch of those. But among my short list of guys, and since we're getting to that time of year where you look at the short lists, this is really what it looks like now. You have, so on my 5 guys on my board who I want to take in the first round for the Giants, and I'm gonna have this more fleshed out in the future, but my first round big board for the Giants is Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane, Vega Ioane, and Carnell Tate. That is my final first round big board for the New York Football Giants. And, I think that's about it for today. I don't really got much else. I had some fun this week. Had a lot of fun, talking some college basketball. Obviously, going to have more on that. Next week, we're going to have some baseball to talk about. Probably going to be incredibly frustrated, so that's always fun to watch. Anyways, that will be all for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, this has been Woolley Mammoth Mondays on WIUR. I am your host, Cam Woolley, saying so long and have a good one.